think we are live now, so I'm going to rush through the introduction so that our guests, um, our listeners and viewers can have a feel of what to expect over the
Okay.
next 1 hour. So thank you very much, everyone. So this is another episode of our live series for our ecosystem, the TLAN ecosystem, um, which is dedicated to nurturing talent and empowering the next wave of global professionals. This episode is very unique in the sense that it's focused on Study USA, which and we have the privilege of hosting uh, Dr. Rosemary Max, the executive director of for global engagement at Oakland University in Michigan. Dr. Max brings a wealth of knowledge from her esteemed career in international education, focusing on helping students um, um, derive maximum value from the university system. And we have her right live and direct with us today. I will just go straight and hand over the presentation mic to her so that she can run us through this brilliant presentation which she has prepared on the American higher education overview. It will be focused specifically on the undergraduates. Thank you very much, Dr. Max. You have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Good. Can
I
you hear
can
me?
hear you very
Okay.
well. I
All right.
believe,
Awesome.
yes,
Okay. Great.
thank you.
Thank you. So thank you so much. I'm so happy to be speaking to everybody today and about this topic, which is a passion of mine, and that's higher education. I'll talk a little bit about um, many different parts and pathways to come to the United States for your undergraduate degree, or what we call here your bachelor's degree. And hopefully you can see on the PowerPoint, my email is there, rmax@oakland.edu, and I work at Oakland University. So, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And as we go through the presentation, I'll be telling you a little bit about Oakland, but I'm also telling you about just education in general at this level in the United States. So many of the things that I'm talking about would apply to other universities as well. So just some facts. There are thousands and thousands of colleges and universities in the United States. And so you have a very wide range of choice, which is sometimes great, and sometimes it can be confusing as to where you're picking to go to school. At the undergraduate level, there are typically two types of degrees: an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree that you can get, let's say, at a community college. Some students start out at a community college and do a year or two, and then they transfer to a 4-year program, which would be at a university or a college. So your bachelor's degree, when you complete that here in the United States, is typically a 4-year degree program, and that's what my university offers. There are also intensive English programs, but I think most of you are in Nigeria, so you already have your schooling in English, but for other countries, maybe in Francophone Africa, it's interesting to know about the intensive English programs as well. So here's a picture of my campus. This is what it looks like in the fall. Right out of my window right now, it's snowy and it does not look like this. So it's wintertime, but in the fall, this is part of what my campus looks like. There's also another part of what my campus looks like. Just a little bit about Oakland. So our university was founded in 1957. We are what I will call a medium-sized public university. So we have about 16,000 students. We have about 800 international students coming from countries, about 70 countries around the world. And we have about 60 students from Africa and about 10 to 15 Nigerian students every term. So there's a community of Nigerians, a community of African students, and a broader community of international and domestic students here at our school. We're in Michigan, and we're in the Detroit metro area. So our school is called Oakland University, and it was named for our Oakland County. So we are in a county that has about 1,000 international companies. They're all part of the automotive supply chain and in healthcare and manufacturing. So people in business and engineering and healthcare will have a lot of places to work and do internships at our school. You have couple hundred options in terms of your major coming to Oakland. We have a College of Arts and Sciences, so that's everything from your typical traditional fields like history, sociology, physics, chemistry, biology. We have a School of Engineering and Computer Science. We have a School of Business, a medical school, a School of Health Sciences, a School of Nursing, and a School of Education. So as I said, we're what's called a doctoral public research university in Michigan, and that means that we deliver bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. So in general, in the US, here's how the degree types break down. So undergraduate is bachelor's or 4 years. You can come for a master's program after you complete an undergrad, or even, if you complete your undergraduate degree at home. Those programs in the United States, depending on the program in the school, can run from 1 to 3 years. They're typically course-based programs where you're not doing a paper or a thesis in the same way you'd be doing that for a PhD program. Then that's obviously the highest level, the doctoral or the PhD program. And I just put you can be in that program for 3 years or up to as many years as it takes for you to complete your research and your dissertation. So after students complete a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, sometimes students are in doctoral programs for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, especially if they're working on experiments or looking for some sort of something new that they're going to write up as part of their dissertation. One thing to consider is your degree going to be a STEM degree or not? So we'll talk a little bit about why that's important in a minute. But STEM in the United States, and I guess around the world as well, as a degree that is in science, technology, engineering, or math. And as an international student coming to the US, if you complete your degree in what's considered to be a STEM field, the US government gives you 3 years of work permission to work in the United States. If your degree is not a STEM degree, you get 1 year of work permission once you complete your degree. So if I graduate in history in the United States, that's not a STEM field, so I would have 1 year of work permission after I graduate to work in the United States. Before changing to another status, going home, moving to a third country. So if I'm in computer science, that is a STEM field, so I would have 3 years. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So the application process. So, it takes a lot to figure out what university you want to go to. Sometimes people pick a school because it's close to people they know in the United States, it's close to someone who might be able to help you, or it's close to potentially a family member, or maybe in an area or a city that you like. Some people pick their school based on the weather. Some people pick their school based on the types of programs that are offered, and also cost, right? So once you settle on your school, or you can apply to as many schools as you would like. There's no real limit. I mean, it's just your time and your effort and your money. But you can apply to multiple schools, and many students in the United States, especially if they're trying to get into some of those most competitive schools, will apply to a lot of schools. So the application process. So typically you're going to find the application. That's the first step. So you go to the school's website, you look for undergraduate admissions. They typically have a link to their application process, and you just start the process. It's pretty easy. There's something else at the undergraduate level called the Common App, or the Common Application. Many, many schools use the Common App. Not all schools use the Common App. And they'll tell you on their undergraduate admission page whether they're a Common App school or not. So that means you can use what's called the Common Application system to apply to their school. So you fill out an application in a centralized system, then you just select the schools that you'd like that application to go to. So that can make your application process easy. But as I said, some schools use the Common App, some schools do not. Just moving up to my some schools have an application fee. Some schools do not have an application fee. So those can run from $40 or $50 to $100 usually. Oakland, my school, does not have an undergraduate application fee. Some schools that have application fees also have waivers. So you can say, oh, well, I can't afford the application fee. I'd like a waiver. So that's something to look into. However, the application fee is nothing compared to tuition, which we'll get to in a minute. So, you want to make sure that you have the funds to come to the United States for school. So you find the application, you fill it out, and the application is usually asking you questions about your name, your address, basic biographical information. They usually ask you what program you're interested in. Are you interested in biology? Are you interested in chemistry? So you're filling that out. And then they're usually asking you for your transcripts from your school. So there are different ways that schools handle transcripts, and we can talk about that in a minute. I have a slide on transcripts. So grades, what kind of school notes or grades do you have to get into a U.S. university? So that really depends. There's thousands of universities. Some are incredibly, incredibly competitive. Some are less competitive. But typically you would want to have the U.S. scores on a 4.0 scale. So a 3.0 would be about an 80%, or what would be a B in our system. And so that's typically a good grade point average to have if you'd like to apply to a range of schools. If you're looking at schools that are ranked in the top 20 or top 30 or top 40, you would need a much, much higher grade point for those schools. Our grade point average, we typically are okay with students coming in at a 2.5. Grade point average in high school, so that means that you were kind of like between a B and a C student, 70, 75%, 80% or higher. Also part of your application will be a personal statement, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. They usually like to see teacher recommendations, and they have a way in their application process, and certainly in the Common App, you would be able to send a recommendation form to some of your teachers so they can talk about what kind of student you are and if you'd be successful at a university. Standardized tests. So some schools still require what's called the SAT or the ACT. Many schools don't require those of international students. So if you find a school that requires an SAT or an ACT, those are two standardized aptitude tests that a lot of students take in the United States. Many international students don't need to take those. So again, this is going to be on the admissions page of the university that you're most interested in. Oakland University, our school, OU, we don't have a requirement for this test. So you don't need to do this test to complete your application at Oakland. And then as an international student, here's where you differ from a domestic student. You will need to show proof of funds to attend the school. And so that's not only for the school, which is going to issue you your document to go get your visa at the consulate, but the consular officer, when you meet that consular officer and you're in front of that person asking you, how are you going to fund your studies in the U.S., that's going to be an important part of your visa interview as well. And we'll talk more about funding in a minute. Just to talk a little bit about transcripts. So each school is a little bit different. Some schools will just say, upload your transcripts, or have your school upload your transcripts that shows us what kind of grades you got, what subjects you took, and we can evaluate those and look at those ourselves. Other schools will only accept transcripts from a third-party transcript evaluator, and those links kind of give you a sense of who some of those third-party evaluators are. And that would mean that your school would be sending your transcript to one of those organizations. They would be evaluating your transcript, maybe charging you a fee, $100, $200 to get your transcript evaluated, and then you would upload it and send it to the school. Now that transcript, once it's evaluated, you pay for it once, and you can have it sent to multiple schools. So it's not like you would have to keep paying for it. So that really depends on each school. So that's why it's really important to kind of understand what each school is asking you for. There are thousands of schools. Schools are going to be different on what they're asking you for. Okay. So a lot of part of the application process is an essay or a personal statement. Some schools may just have a few questions they ask you. Some will say, oh, tell us about yourself. This is your chance to write something personal about yourself. Here's a personal statement we'd like you to submit to us. And so basically, what schools want to know is they want to know who you are, but briefly, right? There's always going to be a word limit. They may say, tell us in less than 500 words, or tell us in less than 1,000 words. So here you're going to want to think about how you're going to best use that space that they give you and the word limit they give you to say what you need about yourself so they can learn who you are. So a lot of schools will say or want to know what you've done or what you've studied that's brought you to this point of applying to their school, right? So why are you motivated to apply to their school? And why are you applying to this school and this program? Schools like to be flattered a little bit. Tell them why you like their school, why you like their program. You want to have 2 or 3 strong points in your essay that say why you want to go to their school and why this school is so important for you. Schools are also interested in what you're going to do at their school. How will you spend your time there? What are you going to study? What types of clubs will you get involved in? They sometimes want to know outside of the classroom, how do you see yourself being involved at our university? So American universities have a lot of clubs, a lot of sports, a lot of things you can do to get involved in that as part of student life. So they're not only accepting you for your academic background, they're accepting you because they want you to be part of their community. So think about that when you develop your personal essay, and you want to have some strong points around that. And then you want to come to a conclusion, right? You want to have a strong ending conclusion that says, I'd like to reiterate, or I'd like to emphasize again why I think I'm a good fit for your school. Here are the things that I think that I bring to your school. So a strong but crisp and short conclusion. You want to stick to the page limit or word limit they give you. And, obviously have someone edit it or proofread it for you. I've been writing a long time in my life. I write a lot of things, and I always send to someone to proofread because you can always make mistakes. Sometimes there are other questions that schools ask you. You'll see in the Common App, like a prompt will come up and will ask you to say, so they might say, well, tell us something you've read recently that inspires you, or who inspires you, or what historical figure inspires you. Each school is a little bit different. But typically schools will give you a chance to say, is there anything else you want us to know about you or need to explain? And so typically what I tell students in this situation is, especially if there's something that stands out in your record that may not be positive, like you had a bad semester, or your grades in a particular area aren't very good, or I usually tell students to confront that in this type of question. If they give you a chance to explain that, say, my grades that term weren't good because I was sick. My grades that term weren't great because my mother passed away. These are things that you can tell a school, right? Especially if you're explaining something that may be out of character for the rest of your school application. Schools are more interested now in diversity, and sometimes they ask you or have you write about diversity. How would you bring diversity to our school program? Have you been a part of diversity efforts in your life? What does diversity mean to you? Not all schools have this question, but some schools have this question, and more schools are having this question. So it's a good idea to start thinking about that as you're thinking about applying to a U.S. university. Some things not to do in an essay: don't use others' work or plagiarize it, and don't use AI. So artificial intelligence. So really, what I say to students here is, like, they're not looking for someone who's perfect, and they don't want you to make yourself sound like you're perfect. Admissions committees don't like that. I've been on many of them, and if someone's bragging for 1,000 words about how great they are, it gets boring. You're just kind of like, oh boy. This is really a chance for you to shine in an essay rather than plagiarize someone else's work. You have good things to say about yourself, and I think you should say them rather than try to have someone else say them for you. As I mentioned before, don't be afraid to list challenges, failures, or things you have overcome, right? They want to know you're resilient. They want to know you have some grit, that as you face a challenge that you can overcome it. So if that works its way into your personal essay, that's great. Again, don't miss any deadlines. Sometimes scholarship applications may be separate from an admissions application. So often students have questions about when deadlines are. They are all over the place. It depends on your school. It depends on if you're going to try to apply for an early admission. Schools sometimes have an intake at the end of August for fall term. You can apply to join in the January term. You can apply to join in summer. So really, this is quite flexible. Sometimes schools will even take applications beyond deadlines. I know at my school at Oakland, if the deadline comes and you miss the deadline, students reach out to us all the time, is it too late to apply? And we're always encouraging applications. For me, as long as I feel like a student could get their application in and we have time to get them their immigration document and they have time to get a visa appointment and get here, we're always looking at applications even beyond the deadline. Other schools will be very strict with their deadline, so it just really depends. Standardized tests. So typically for international students, English proficiency tests are important, but language of instruction in Nigeria is English. So some schools will still make students from Nigeria take a TOEFL test or a Duolingo test, and that will be on their website. But I know at my school at Oakland, and this will probably be true at some other schools as well, if your high school language of instruction was or is English, Oakland University will not require any language test from you. We'll just require a note from your school that says, yes, this student was English is a language of instruction at our high school, or maybe you've already started university and language of instruction is in English. So that will also depend on the school. I talked a little bit about the SAT and the ACT. So these are aptitude tests that a lot of students in the United States take before they come to college. Most schools do not require these tests for international students. Some of the most competitive schools will require this test for everyone, including international students. A lot of schools don't require it for international students. Some say it's optional, right? Some say we don't require it for international students, but if you want to be considered for scholarships, you might need to submit it. So each school is a little bit different. At my school, we do not require this test. There's a link there to more information about the tests, and I think depending on where you take it, it's approximately $100. Funding, so proof of funds. So when you're an international student coming to the United States, you're typically going to come on what's called an F1 student visa. And the F1 visa requires that my office or an office like mine at a university will issue you a document called an I-20. So you're admitted, you provide proof of funds, we send you an I-20. The I-20 has your name on it, it's got your intended major, it's got the school start date. It has the cost of the school, what we call the cost of attendance for 1 year. And on that form, it shows how you're meeting that cost of attendance. So that's going to be part of the visa process. So what I'm getting at is an annual cost of attendance is listed on the I-20. Every school lists their cost of attendance. And mostly the cost of attendance for the year is going to be made up of tuition, right? So you have 2 semesters of tuition. Housing, how much it costs for you to live on campus if you're going to live on campus or the equivalent off campus. Schools factor in food. They have an estimate of what your food plan would cost at their university. So at a minimum, those are the things that make up the cost of attendance. At my school at Oakland, we include health insurance on there because that's mandatory for us. We don't include books and other things, spending money. We tell you kind of approximately how much you should have for that. But some schools include everything on there. And so you have to show a bigger bank statement because they include everything you could potentially spend money on in your first year. Funds for this. So if you're applying and we issue the I-20, you're typically sending us funds that are fair. You're not sending us funds. You're sending us proof of funds at this point that are what we would call liquid, so available for you to use. So your bank statement, a family member's bank statement, etc. So these are funds that have to be, they're not really in a stock account. They can't be kind of in a retirement account. They have to be kind of available for your use. And the way that most students meet that burden of funding is by showing a bank statement of themselves or a family member. So here's the hard part about coming to the U.S. It's cost. So most schools' annual cost of attendance in the United States now is above $50,000. That's for 1 year. I just wanted to give you a sense about how Oakland compares to this. So our cost of attendance for a year for international students right now is $33,134. So it's much less than many schools. So that includes 2 semesters of tuition, housing, food, and health insurance. So I'll just say something here. Students often ask about scholarships, and what I say is that in the United States, most of the scholarships for international students are at the graduate level. So that means after you finish your undergraduate degree and you go on to a master's or a doctoral program, that's really where you'll see more scholarships. There are undergraduates that get some scholarships, but I would kind of caution you to be careful here, because you might find that, let's say you apply to a school and their cost of attendance is $60,000 and they're giving you a scholarship of $15,000. And it looks like a big scholarship, you're happy with it, but the bottom line is you still are paying $45,000. So where Oakland may not have a lot of scholarships right off the bat for students, our cost is still significantly lower than many schools that would be awarding you a scholarship. There are some very lucky students who are at the top of their class and they're able to get a significant amount of scholarship money at the undergraduate level, but that's extremely rare. You can set up a payment plan so your family doesn't have to pay it all at once. At Oakland University, we have students who come, and we'll talk a little bit about work in a few minutes, but you can work on campus at Oakland for up to 20 hours a week as an international student while school is in session. And so all student jobs at Oakland University pay $15 an hour or higher. So will that help you pay your tuition? No, it will not. When that tuition bill comes due, you have to have a plan for it, right? But will that give you $600, $700, $800 a month to spend on other things? Yes, and help out with some of those living costs. But there's absolutely no way working 20 hours a week at a U.S. school will you be able to make the kind of money that would help you to pay for your school program. So once all that's in, you submit your application, and then you wait, right? So when does the decision come? So how long does that take? So some schools take months to give you a decision. They may be waiting to see how they shape their class of students, who they're admitting. They want to do it all at one time. Some schools take a few days to admit you. So it really depends. At my school, Oakland, once your application is submitted, it usually doesn't take us more than a week or two to get you an answer to say, yes, congratulations, you're accepted. No, we're sorry that we can't accept you. We wish you well. And then, or that you would be on a wait list, right? So some schools that are incredibly competitive, those top 20, 30, 40 schools in the United States, sometimes those students, you wouldn't get in, or students don't get in and you get what we call a ding letter or no. Sometimes you're waitlisted. They say, okay, we have you on a wait list and we're waiting to see how many students confirm with us, and then we'll start moving students off the wait list. So that is another way that students get into schools here. After that, you commit to the school. Sometimes you deposit some funds. The school sends you the I-20 so you can start the visa process. And we'll just talk about the visa process quickly here. So this is part of the process that's kind of the most annoying for us, and I think on the school end, because we don't have any control over it, right? And students often feel that they don't have any control over it either. But there are some things that you can do to kind of enhance your chances of getting a visa. So what you typically bring, and there may be more documentation depending on what post you go to get your visa at. But typically you're going to need the I-20, the document that I've been talking about that we issue to you that has the cost of attendance on it. You would need your acceptance letter that we would give you if you're accepted to our school. And there are 2 other federal forms that you fill out. There's an I-901 fee. It's another fee that the U.S. makes you pay. You get this receipt after you pay it, and then you also take that to the interview with you. And then the DS-160 is the actual visa application. They typically want to see proof of funding, right? That if on the I-20 I've written that this student has shown us their family's bank statement, and they're going to want to typically see that. Sometimes they want to see other documents as well. People that are in country near you who have gone through this process will give you good advice on this. they're going to ask you some questions, right? You're going to want to be able to say why you applied to the school that you applied to and want to go to. They usually ask you quickly, how did you find this school? What do you know about the school? Where is the school located? They want to make sure that you have an idea of what's happening. If they feel you haven't been part of the process in getting admitted to the school, or you're not sure where you're going, you're not sure about what you're going to study, or you don't seem to know, you may know, but you don't express it to them, that's a red flag to them. So research your school. They also want to know that you will return home after your degree is completed. So they want to know that after your program is over, you've done your post your work training that we talked about, either the 1 year or the 3 year, that your intention is to return home. Now, you may end up getting a job in the U.S. and staying, but this is not the time to say that. This is the time to kind of say to a visa officer that my goal is to get this degree in this field. Here's how I'm going to use it at home. And I have family and friends at home, and my goal is to come back to my country. So that's the visa process in a nutshell. Just some tips also, sometimes if you're from a country that has a more traditional background, or you're from a traditional society, maintaining eye contact with an authority or someone who's older than you is not easy. I know that we see with our students who are from traditional societies who have a lot of respect for older people, it's hard for them to maintain eye contact. But it's really important in your visa interview that you maintain eye contact, that you state your case briefly and with confidence. Americans like confident people. They like people who speak up and say what they want to do and say it confidently. So that's really important in the visa interview. So the 214B denial is the big denial that everybody gets. And that's what I was talking about. If they feel that you don't have ties to your home country, or it's not clear to them that you're going to return. So this is the reason code. So if you get denied, they'll send you a piece of paper, and it's almost always going to say you were not able to prove sufficient ties to your home country, or what's called a 214B denial. Okay. So, proof of funding is important. And then, so all these things are important in the visa process. And I think the key thing to know is if you're denied, you can apply again. It may take you some time to get another appointment, but I've worked with hundreds of students some who have been denied, and we talk through a second appointment with our students here who have been denied, and many of them are successful on the second try. Not all of them, but many of them are successful on the second try. Just a few other features of higher ed. I just have one more slide. So, there's a lot of times at a U.S. university, there's housing. So you have ability to live on campus if you want. So you'd be applying for housing. Sometimes you can live off campus as well, and then you'd be on your own to find an apartment. Once you're admitted, you'd be setting up an email. The schools will want to send you a range of information about their programs and your arrival and how to get ready for coming to the United States. It's important to think about how you'll get to campus. What's the nearest airport? Have a plan. Students are often looking for the cheapest ticket. But if the cheapest ticket puts you at like a midnight or 11:30 p.m. arrival in a city that you know nothing about, that can be dangerous. So you want to make sure that you have a plan of when you'll arrive at the airport, what you're going to do when you get there, and how you get to your school. And the people who work at the school that you're going to will give you information about this. There's almost always an international student orientation. So it's usually maybe the day before classes start. That's a very important event to attend. It talks about a lot of things that you're going to need to know with respect to immigration regulations and enrollment at a U.S. university. Sometimes you register for classes before you arrive on campus. Sometimes you do it after you arrive on campus. As an international student, you need to be full-time. So you can't be a part-time student in F1 status. You have to be a full-time student. There are occasions in which you can be less than full-time with authorization from an office like mine. But in general, you're going to be a full-time student when you're in the United States. So you can work in the U.S. So in your status, you can work 20 hours a week on campus during the school year, and then on campus during vacation time. So if you're here over the summer or over the holidays, you can go up to 40 hours a week, which is full-time. There's some scope for off-campus work permission during your school program. So if you get an internship after you've been here for a while, it just needs to be approved by your university's international office. As I mentioned, once you graduate, there is a broad work permission for 1 to 3 years that you apply for through your university's international office. 3 years is for the STEM students. So just briefly, I want to run down a few things about Oakland. So we have students come who are at a 2.5 GPA or higher. We don't have an undergraduate application fee. No SAT is required. No TOEFL is required if your high school was all in English. You get out a quick decision. The total on our 20 is there, and you can live on campus. And then there's the link to our application. And then sometimes I want to show you this picture. So Oakland's mascot is the Golden Grizzly. Our basketball team are the Golden Grizzlies. And this is for fun, but also to say sometimes in the visa immigration, the visa interviews, an officer will ask you, what is the mascot of the school? They want to see if you've even done any research. Do you know that it's the Michigan State Spartans or the Michigan Wolverines or, Oakland Golden Grizzlies? So, it's important to know that as well. So with that, I'll stop sharing and then hopefully we'll have some questions.
Wow. Thank you very, very much for this a very great presentation. So a lot of people have been watching you. Questions have been sent forth even before this presentation. Some of those questions have been answered, but some would call on a gentleman, a Rotaractor, Mujid Abisogun, is on the line now. He's in the waiting room.
Sure.
You will like to ask some questions. He's a leader amongst the Rotaract Club, and he represents a number of students. Some of them are intending students, some of them are undergraduates, some are postgraduates. But I'll bring him in right now so that he can share. Mujid, are you there? Mujid, are you there? Okay, he's not there, but I can see his icon, but it looks like he's muted. Not sure why, but I'm going to ask you some of the questions that we have put together here. Hopefully, before we finish that, Mujid can come up screen. So from the presentation, so this presentation has been tailored primarily towards the needs of the intending undergraduate students. One question is, for somebody who had acquired an undergraduate degree previously in Nigeria, is it possible to travel to Oakland, to enroll in Oakland for another undergraduate program? Then this person is asking a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to read it out, and hopefully we can dimension it. So he's saying, is it possible to acquire another undergraduate program? And the second part is, if it's possible, would I be given credit for the prior degree, the prior undergraduate degree program?
So that's a good question. So yes, you can get a second bachelor's degree. Typically, a school would not admit you to the same bachelor's degree, right? So if you got a bachelor's degree in computer science in Nigeria, Oakland and most schools would not admit you to a computer science bachelor's degree again. You might say, oh, well, I want to do something different, like I want to be in biology. And we would say, okay, and maybe that would work, and you could do a second bachelor's degree. Now, yes, we would look at a transcript and say, how many of those credits might count toward biology, right? Could you get credit for that? But what I would also say is, this would be a conversation. It's not quite sure why you want to repeat a bachelor's degree. So what you might do is, you might think of, is there a master's degree I'm interested in? And do I need any prerequisites I could take to get into that master's program, right? And so you'd want to look at those two options, because redoing a bachelor's degree, even if a lot of credits transferred in, you're still probably looking at 2 years, maybe 2.5, maybe 3, depending on how credits transfer. And, you might be able to do a semester of prerequisites for a master's degree, and then a master's degree could be 1.5 years. So I think there's a lot to think about there. But yes, there's some flexibility there. It's just that you would want to stay away from completely redoing the same degree. Most schools will not admit you for the same degree you've already completed.
Great.
And just one thing there, I'll just say one thing. Some students get caught out on this, right? So they maybe they'll say, oh, I'm not going to tell them about my previous degree and I'm just going to come. And then what happens is then you want to transfer credits, and then you bring that transcript forth, and the school sees that as fraud, because they want to know all the schools that you've completed, right? So it doesn't pay to do that, right? So I mean, it seems like it makes sense. But then, like, if you say, I didn't do a bachelor's degree, and then all of a sudden you're coming with a transcript and say, now I want to transfer these credits, the school could ask you to leave just based on that. So you really want to talk through these options and think about that as you approach a school with respect to doing another bachelor's degree, or maybe thinking about how you could turn that into a master's degree.
Great. The second question is, okay, I think you've talked about it. It's on AI. The person was asking, can I use AI for my application? So you had given a warning, a note of caution.
Right. Nope.
Not to
Why would you do that? You're more interesting than AI. Why would you do that, right? That person is, I'm sure, way more interesting than what AI would say about them.
Great. And again, I suspect it's no more original if you are submitting an AI generated work, and I suspect the university may like to see the originality of the applicant.
Exactly.
So the other one here relates to standardized tests. It reads, how do American universities view international qualifications like A-levels and IB?
Yep. So they know a lot about those types about A-levels and IB. So most undergraduate programs, I know our admissions counselors would value those. They know all about kind of those grades and what how you would, the courses that you take. So, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Like our school does a lot of credit transfer for IB, for example. So if you do IB in your home for your high school, you may end up finding that Oakland would give you some transfer credit already for your IB. So most schools are very equipped at handling this. Okay.
Great. Is Mujib on the line now? I can see your icon. It looks like. Can you hear us? Hello.
Hi.
Are you there?
Yep. I think he's there, isn't he?
Oh, we can, but I can't hear him. It seems like he's saying something, but
oh, you know what? His microphone's muted. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us? I guess the network, it's probably maybe, network.
Yeah. I saw him for a minute. His picture came on, but.
Yeah, I did. Okay, let me, we'll try and work on that. Let's take another question. What is the most common cultural shock that international students face in the US, and how can I prepare myself in advance?
So that's a great question. And I guess what I would say is I'll say a couple things, and it probably depends on where you come from. So if you're from a warm climate and you come to Michigan, winter is sometimes a shock, right? Weather. Um, I think that students who come from a society that's homogeneous, maybe not as diverse, they're shocked by the diversity of the United States. This is a very diverse place and an increasingly diverse place. They're shocked by, I think they're shocked by, I guess in a good way, by the options and the freedoms they have here to do what they want in terms of their own cultural background, their own religious background. Oakland has many prayer services and things on campus. There's a mosque. There's different things for students. There's halal food in the dining halls. So I think students are surprised by that. And I'll say, I think culturally they're surprised by the speed at which university classroom and academics go. So first couple weeks, students are like, oh, okay, this is going to be easy, no problem. And then the homework, the reading, class presentations, all of that, I think can really catch up with students. So what I always let students know is that most schools have a range of student support services around the student to make sure that you don't fall behind. So I think those are some of the things, really managing all of that and being far from home is always a shock.
Great. I in my own little corner, I would say you could possibly do your research, watch as many YouTube videos as you can possibly do, talk to people. That may help.
Yeah.
May help.
Yep. And also, everything is big here, right? The cars are big, spaces are big, everything is big. So I think students are usually shocked by that as well.
Great. That's a good show. Someone is asking a question from another device. Okay, he's saying, I don't know how, but the event is behind on LinkedIn, like a couple of minutes behind. Oh, well, it's a technology issue. We have, I guess we just have to live by it. There are some things we cannot really change. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what is the procedure to apply for a student visa? I guess that has been discussed elaborately. What are the common reasons for students' visa rejection? How can they be avoided? You talked about it, but I guess you can still help with this.
Yeah. So the way that you apply for a visa is that you find out what consulate's the closest to you, and I don't know if does everybody go to Lagos, or are there other consulates as well in Nigeria?
So I think there are two, primarily Lagos and if my knowledge serves me right, and Abuja.
Right.
So yeah.
So you would go and apply. You would do the DS-160 form, which is to apply for an F-1 visa, and you're going to select which consulate you're going to go to, and then you're going to fill in all the information there. But in order to do that, you need the documents from our school. So you need your admissions letter, you need your I-20. So after you have all that, your admissions packet, then you would apply for the visa. So I think the key reasons for denial are so there's not a reason for funding that's for denial, but if they look at your document and they see that they're not sure about your funding source, maybe it's like someone, a third or fourth cousin, or you've got 10 people trying to fund you to come. Sometimes that looks like they're not sure if you have the money to come, right? So that can be an issue. The second thing that we talked about was if you're unable to demonstrate that you're not intending to immigrate to the U.S. So if you're unable to say, if you go in there making it sound like you're coming to the U.S. and you intend to immigrate there for the rest of your life, that's a big red flag for them. And I think the third thing is really, if you don't seem to know a lot about your school or where you're going, that's a red flag for them. So, if someone's helping you with a process, that's great, but you have to become familiar with a lot of things about your school. So, you're interested in, it makes it look like you're interested in going and that you know what you're doing. So those are really the key things that you need to be thinking about in the preparation process.
Great. Thank you very much. So there's another a question rather. Do we have Nigerians in Oakland? Is there no place where you don't see Nigerians? Well, Doc, can you answer that? Do we have Nigerians in Oakland?
Yes, yeah. So we typically have 10 or 15 Nigerians here at any given time. And then we have about 60 students from different parts of Africa, from Ghana, from Senegal, from Ethiopia, many different places. And we also have faculty members. So it's important that you know that our faculty members are also we have faculty members that are originally from Africa, right? So we have a Ghanaian faculty member in public health. We have other faculty members who have African backgrounds in other areas. So, we do have people from Africa on our campus. And, the Detroit metro area is about, I don't know, 4 or 5 million people. And so it may not seem a lot because I know, big cities in Nigeria are a lot bigger, but so this is a very diverse area. So you'll find your people in your community here.
Great. So there's another question. I hope we have enough time to take this. Actually, I have a lot here, but I'm going to cherry pick. We have a part 2 tomorrow. So all questions relating to graduate program, I'm not going to take them today. I'm so sorry for this. We have another session tomorrow for the graduate program. So all questions on postgraduate studies, we'll take them tomorrow. That said, this question is on networking and career development. What advice do you have for making the most out of networking opportunities in your university? I would say, why don't you get there first before you talk about networking? But the question is for
I can talk
Doctor
about
and
it.
not for me.
So that's someone who's looking ahead, obviously. That's good. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for that kind of thing at our university. So every university has what they will call a career center. And our university also has a career center. And so throughout the year, they're putting on networking opportunities. They're putting on career fairs. They're inviting in companies where you can meet with them and tell them about yourself. They have mock interviews. They have mock networking nights. They have etiquette nights. So what is the etiquette for approaching someone and talking to them about, wanting to work for them? And then on top of that, each school or college here, whether you're in engineering or in health sciences or you're in chemistry, so they often have experts and people that they bring in that are specific to their field of study, right? So there's lots of opportunity for that here. There's lots of opportunity to kind of meet those companies and to talk to people. Once you're in the United States in F1 status for up to 8 months, you have the opportunity to, with authorization, do an internship off campus paid. And so you would get authorization from an office like mine. And so you can do internships as well. And those also help you to kind of get into the world of work and to network.
Great. Thank you very much. This question is, it reads thus: are there special considerations for students who have records in volunteering, community development, and other courses? Are there special consideration for such students?
So explain to me a little bit kind of what that question means. I may not understand kind of what that, someone who's done a lot of volunteering opportunities, or what does that mean exactly?
So this question, I guess, is saying if an intending student, the person is typing, but I'm just going to say my own interpretation before I get the clarification from the person. So I guess this person has a record of volunteering here in Nigeria. So he's saying, will that give any plus in addition to my academic qualification, can I have any advantage either in terms of scholarship, in terms of priority for admission, or any advantage at all?
Yep.
Because I have had a good record of volunteering in the community, doing community service, and those kind of endeavors.
Yep. So I would say a couple things about that. Those kind of activities are very important. And most schools will give you a chance to list activities that you've been involved in, either at school or outside of school. So volunteering would be there. So you'd want to make sure that you note those. And then for sure, if you have a chance to write about something in a personal statement, and this is important to you, and it would be important to schools, most schools would find that background very important, that you would want to kind of write about that, and you could say, here's something that's important to me. I want to do this, and I want to major in this, or I want to be in this type of school program. But also I want to let you know that it's volunteering is important to me. Here's some of the work that I've done and I volunteered in my home country. And one of the reasons I picked your school is because I see there are volunteering opportunities, or one of the things I hope to do is to continue this volunteering attitude, these volunteering activities. When I come to your university, at my university, we call it community engagement. And so we have a large portion of our campus that does community engagement. So this is where you want to research your school, right? So what's on the website at that school about community engagement, about volunteering and outreach. And so that would be important to talk about in your personal statement and any of the activities that you list in the application process. Now, I don't know if it'll generate a scholarship right away for you to come, but what I can imagine is that if once you're here, if you're engaged in community volunteering options and activities, there are sometimes smaller scholarships. And part of the thing that they say about those scholarships is you can only apply for them if you can show us that you've been involved in the community. And so you might be able to get a smaller scholarship like that once you arrive at a university.
Great. So what I see here is that the applicant will need to include this if it's important,
right,
for the person. It might be of value to include this in the personal statement,
yes,
and write a story that is genuine, authentic, and also link it up with the way it will possibly add value when, if and when is given admission.
right. I think that it would be, most universities would be very interested to know about someone's commitment to volunteering and commitment to the community. I would say if the personal statement doesn't give you enough space, sometimes, as I said, a school will say, is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself? Maybe you get to write a paragraph there to say, hey, I wasn't able to say this in my personal statement, but I love to volunteer. Here's what I've done. I really want to volunteer at your university. So, look at the space a school gives you in an application, right? How many opportunities do you have to write about yourself and the things that you care about and the things that you're passionate about? And then you think strategically about your application, when to include something like that, but definitely include it.
Great. Actually, the live should be for 60 minutes, but because it took a while before we got started, so that's why we are taking extra time. I don't know if I have the opportunity of asking one or two more questions.
Yep, go ahead.
Before we wrap up. Great. So this question is on scholarship and financial aid. How can international, I'm sure you have, I know you have talked a lot on financial aid and scholarship, but I'm going to read it out.
Yep.
How can international students find scholarship and financial aid opportunities?
Yep. So that's
This
a good
looks
question.
generic.
Yep. So I'll say a couple things. So one is all U.S. federal and state financial aid is only for U.S. citizens and green card holders, right? So there's no state or federal financial aid for non-U.S. citizens. Whether you're an undergrad or grad, it doesn't matter. So schools do have their own money for scholarships. And so sometimes schools will have a separate process for a scholarship. Sometimes they'll just consider you automatically for a scholarship. So a school might have a scholarship. However, most schools have larger funds of money available at the graduate level. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow. So most students that are coming to the U.S. at the undergraduate level are coming with family funds, or maybe there's a fund or some sort of money that they get from their own country that allows them to do this. We've seen that. I'll just give an example of two young women who came from Senegal. They're twins. Parents have more than enough funds to send them, but still having twins at a university at the same time, it doubles their cost, right? So the parents said, okay, we can fund you, but the twins got here. They did their first year. They were able to distinguish themselves, get a few small scholarships. They live on campus. They were able to apply for what's called a resident assistantship. So they are working in the dorm that they live in, which takes away all their housing costs. So now their housing costs are free. So these things are available, but a lot of schools will not have that money kind of upfront for international students at the undergraduate level. I'll give another example from Senegal. So I do know one student, not at my school, but a previous school I was at. She got a full ride, everything paid for, right? She didn't have to pay one thing. But I'm going to tell you, she did a national exam in Senegal, and she was the number one student in that country. She scored the highest on the exam. She was invited to finish her high school at the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, and then came to the United States. So it just kind of gives you a sense. So those kind of students who get that kind of funding, they're like the top student in their country, right? So I don't want to sugarcoat the funding piece at the undergraduate level, all right? So it's not easy. Students get here. They come with financial backing from family. Sometimes they're able to find scholarships once they get here, and that helps a lot. But most of the money that you're looking at, where everything's covered from the beginning to the end, is going to be at the graduate level, and particularly at the doctoral level.
Great. So one thing, this the comment you just made resonated with me, and that is to say that Auckland is a place for the best. So for the best student in Senegal, to have chosen Auckland, so that speaks a lot that, hey, in Auckland they value excellence, and they also attract the best students across the world. Yeah. So
don't forget to look at that bottom line. So a school might give you a scholarship to attract you, but you have to see what remains to be paid. So as I gave the example of a school that cost of attendance is $60,000 and they give you a $15,000 scholarship, you're happy with that. But then you look, that still leaves $45,000 to be paid, right? So you have to then compare that against a school like Oakland, who may say, oh, ours is $33,000, but we don't have a scholarship for you right now, but it's already cheaper than this other school plus their scholarship. So those are just examples. I'm not saying that Oakland's always going to be cheaper or another school's not going to give you a bigger scholarship, but you have to compare kind of the bottom line after the scholarships have been applied and see really what's left for my family to pay out of pocket. And then you decide, you look at the costs of coming here.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. On this note, we will draw the curtain today, and we continue again for the postgraduate. We call it postgraduate in Nigeria, but the graduate study component tomorrow, same time tomorrow, 8 p.m. West Africa time, 7 p.m. GMT, and 2 p.m. Eastern time in the US. Thank you very, very much, Doctor. Mujit, thank you very much for joining. Unfortunately, we could not hear you. We saw you briefly. Hopefully, yourself and a few others will join tomorrow. And we are hoping that our connectivity will cooperate with us and our links will work very well for us. But the good thing is, uh, this session is live, being streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on platform X. Hopefully, we can have Instagram tomorrow and YouTube tomorrow. And the transcript, the video actually can actually be watched over and over again. So this very rich content is going to be available for as long as we can possibly keep it. Thank you very much, Doctor, once again.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening,
Yep.
afternoon, I should say, in Michigan, and good evening, everyone in Lagos, Nigeria, and other parts of Nigeria. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.